Okay, friends, we are going to have some fun today and dig into a topic that we really haven't dug into yet on the inner circle. It's money.
I love it. Let's do it.
My guest is already smiling and talking and giving me a look of what he's ready, because I guess we've just been busy talking about other things to this point. So he's going to challenge you to think about money in a different way. He wants to help you adjust your mindset so there are no limiting thoughts on how much you can make. He had an 11-year career as an executive partner in the banking industry. He said it severely lacked fulfillment. Add to that, he was burned out. So he decided he needed to make a change. He retired from banking in 2011 and partnered with his powerhouse wife and her brand, and we'll have more on that later, and you have to stay tuned for those details. He also has a blockbuster podcast. It is called For the Love of Money. You need to check it out. He is none other than the amazing entrepreneur and philanthropist, Chris Harder, otherwise known as Chris W. Harder on Instagram, and we'll get to that later. What an honor to have you here today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Listen, were you surprised when I said that with my muse, and we talked about this, and mostly female audience on the inner circle, that we have not talked about money yet?
I wasn't surprised, because I'm telling you, people would rather talk about the weirdest parts of their sex life than about money. And I know that sounds weird, but they really would. Like, the discomfort around money is severe.
Why?
And so it's not a surprise. There's so many reasons. Number one, I think part of it is ego. So all of us always have some portion of ego that we want to protect. And I feel like there's a fear that people are going to judge us for either desiring money or not having enough money or having too much money. As a matter of fact, it's really funny. You go from being afraid that people are going to think that you don't have enough to all of a sudden thinking people are going to judge you when you have too much.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
Society has programmed us that way. Not to mention our upbringings. When you have weird thoughts and feelings around money, it's not your fault. It's what your parents and your neighbors and your teachers and your friends and everybody else has told you along the way that has formed this awkwardness around money.
So it really is about changing mindset when it comes to money.
It really is.
That's what you are all about, right?
Really
because in my introduction I said that you want to help change the mindset so there's no limiting thoughts. Is that the key in building business, is getting rid of those limiting thoughts and building your worth over time? And I'm talking money, not personal worth, because let's separate those two.
Yeah, they totally are separate. So your question is that the key to having your business explode? Listen, there's always a lot of keys to making your business explode, but I can tell you this. If you are doing all of the mechanics right, if you have your team in place, if you're doing everything that everybody has asked of you, and you are still bumping up against a ceiling, then that is because you have not yet addressed your money mindset. Because no matter what you know, no matter what you do, if you only think that you are worth or capable of doing X or having X, then that's where you're going to be stuck. You're going to sabotage yourself somewhere along that path. And so it's one of the most important things you can work on, along with all the other fundamentals of business.
We're just jumping into the fire right now. Since you opened the door, I'm going there. What is the money mindset? What kind of a mindset should we have?
So it's a subconscious programming in the back of our head that we didn't choose. It chose us based on all of our experiences through life. Growing up, as somebody said, only greedy people get rich. Or if your dad came home and said, I got fired and my boss is a greedy SOB, he just wants to keep more money for himself. Or, if your neighbors had a brand new Mercedes and your parents said, oh, well, they're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. All of these little things start to form if we think money is good or bad or evil or, whatever it is that we think about it. And so what we have to do is do a deep dive saying, wait a minute, where did these thoughts and feelings come from? And what were some moments that formed these thoughts and feelings around money? And choose to reinterpret those moments. So I'll give you a really easy example. Let's use the one where I said, let's say your father or mother came home and said, that greedy boss, they let us go just because they want to keep more money for themselves. When you're a kid, your parents are your hero, right?
Of course.
So you're thinking, sure enough, bosses are greedy, business owners are greedy. To get more money means you got to hurt somebody else. So how do you think that carries over to when you're an adult? Of course, that's going to be planted back here. So you have to go back to these moments that formed these thoughts, and you have to say, wait a minute, my interpretation of that moment was that my parents got screwed, but maybe my dad wasn't one of the top performers at work. maybe my mom kept showing up late. The things that parents don't really share with you.
Exactly.
And you have to choose to reinterpret those events that are forming what you think about money and success.
So we almost have to sit down and write things out. But I don't want you to answer that yet. I want to before we go forward with this conversation, I want to go backwards for a second. Because I want to know how you used to think about money when you were banking. Did you have those thoughts? And how did you got to a point where you're like, I'm not fulfilled, I need to make a change? That's pretty gutsy. A lot of people get those feelings and they crop up and they're like, I'm not fulfilled, but I'm too afraid to make a change, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And then they suppress their inner voice.
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit. I, along with everybody else, have gone through so many different versions of what is my money mindset. Growing up, I knew two things for sure. Number one, I knew that I was generous. I don't know where it came from. Actually, no, I do know where it came from. I'll tell you later if you want. But I knew I was generous. And I was the kid in middle school and high school that would pick up my friends' meals and that kind of thing, even when I didn't have money. And I also knew that I really, really, really desired nice things. Even when I was a little kid, I gravitated towards like the nicest of cars.
That's
and the
a
nicest
juxtaposition of ideas,
It
and
is.
I love it.
It is. So here was my problem. Growing up, I was saying, people say, hey, great job, be generous. But then when I desired nice things and the money it took to have them, they'd say, no, that's not right. You're not supposed to desire money. You're not supposed to desire nice things. And I thought, wait a minute, this very same money that allows me to be generous is the very same money that would get me nice things if I want it. Why are these two things opposing? So I really believe actually that my podcast is nothing more than me working that out loud for everybody to see the inner workings of my head.
But it's great because you take us through that journey and how we need to do that step-by-step discovery in order to get from A to Z.
Yeah, for sure. And you also asked me, what was my opinion of money when I was in banking? Gosh, I've seen so many different things in my life that have given me different opinions of money. When I was originally in banking, I was in subprime lending, and I saw people overstretch themselves all the time to have a dream home. I remember my parents overstretched themselves to have, our dream home growing up. I saw everybody living on the edge or past the edge, just barely putting band-aids over their finances just to make it into the next month. And I really didn't believe, after a while of seeing this example time and time again, that there were very many people running around out there with tons of excess wealth. I thought maybe it was all a facade. Now, as I got exposed to different people in my life and different experiences in my life, I realized there really is a different way to manage your finances, and there really are people with abundant wealth and big net worth and lots of liquidity. But I'm telling you, it's what you see on a daily basis starts to form your opinion of money.
But you changed everything when you decided to leave your position with the bank and that position and join forces with your blockbuster, unbelievable, successful, beautiful wife, Lori Harder. There, we said it. I have a few questions in that regard, but tell me about what that decision was like for you.
Yeah, so I would love to sit here and say, I made this decision to come home and work with Lori out of like some great epiphany. Instead, I was forced to. So I'm a college dropout. When I say dropout, I mean I was kicked out after 2.5 years of just partying. They're like, we don't want you here anymore. You're bad for our school. I'm not kidding. So I get kicked out of college. I was excited because I didn't want to be there. I just wanted to be out earning. Like I always had this inner desire to be out, part of the system, so to speak. My parents were devastated. They thought this was the end of their son's success as they know it. And I got into the banking world. And even without having that degree, I was able to fly up through the ranks because I was just a performer. I was driven. And so I quickly became one of the fastest rising executives at the world's biggest bank. And that was really fun. It was really great for like the first 7 years. Then the recession hit. Now here's where everything started to go awry. I was young, and every year I'd get a great big promotion, a great big raise, and I was living way beyond our means, right? So when the recession hit and I lost all my bonuses, we lost, we had to short sell our house. We had to walk away from all of our rental properties, our investment properties. We had to sell all of our cars. Why we had all these new cars, I don't know. It was complete gross mismanagement and disrespect of money. That was the way I was leading my life because I thought it would always be there. I thought every year I'd get another big raise. So where some people would see this as, oh my God, I can't believe you went through that, or oh, that must have been one of the hardest times of your life. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. but I'll tell you, it was the best gift ever. Because at a young age, this was 29, 30 years old, right? So at a young age, I was able to reframe and re-choose how I wanted to show up in the world. I was able to choose how I wanted to treat money. And quite honestly, I was able to choose a new identity. Because we talk about money mindset. Your identity has a lot to do with your money mindset, or vice versa. Your money mindset will help form your identity. Now, back then, I totally will. Here was my identity. I'm not proud of this. It was, how many people am I managing? Like, how big of a team can I say I'm over? What is my title? How big of a bonus am I getting? What is my salary? What kind of house can I provide for my wife? Matter of fact, am I being a good provider? And I used to think being a good provider was just shielding Lori from having to worry about the finances. Now I look back and I realize how immature and ridiculous of a statement that is. But at the time, that was being a good provider. Like, hey babe, I'm moving you to a new city. Go pick out a new home. I'm getting on an airplane. That was my opinion of a good partner.
You're taking care of her.
Yeah, so look at my identity. It was all like just shiny stuff and stuff I could brag about. And obviously that came from insecurities. Maybe it was an insecurity of being kicked out of school and I'm going to show you. Who knows where it came from. And when we lost absolutely everything and had to start from below zero, it was my chance to choose a new identity. And being able to be given that choice, that's a gift.
So that money identity then, like, do you think the way what you're talking about applies to both men and women? We're both capable. I'm not being sexist. No. I need to ask that question because do we think about money differently? Absolutely.
And a lot of it has to do with conditioning of past generations. So it wasn't very long ago that women were expected to stay home and watch the kids while the man went out and, dragged something back to the cave to be a provider.
Yes.
And now in this day and age, that's laughable. But we're talking like 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. That was the norm.
Yes.
And matter of fact, I look at my mom's generation, and their real purpose was raising their kids.
Yes.
And when their kids moved out of the house, they lost that purpose. And that's a really dangerous situation. But it was the way that they were brought up. And then, our generation saw that in our parents, and so they thought, oh, women don't have to worry about finances, men, it is your job to go worry about it. And that started to form that separation between genders and how they thought about money, that among many other things. Now we live in the coolest day and age where, there's so many households where women are the primary earner. And never before has it been probably more important for women to actually possess a huge, vast majority of the wealth. We can get into that if you want. But I feel like we are in this golden era of being able to show up however you want to show up, make whatever you want to make, and own whatever role you want to own when it comes to your finances.
Okay, go back and tell me what you meant when you said never before are we in an era where women should be and can be and capable of making that much money.
Okay, so first of all, the sky's the limit for anybody, male or female right now. I mean, with the internet and with all of these different careers coming, what was an influencer 5 years ago? It was nothing, right?
It wasn't even a thing. It wasn't a term. It's like, what's an influencer? That's something completely different to what it means today.
With online marketing, with any way that you want to show up and monetize your skills or your expertise, it's available. And there's no cap on it. And it doesn't differentiate between men or women, right? Whatever your skill set is, roll up your sleeves, put a price on it, and go out there and start marketing it. So here's why I say it's important for women to be able to control the vast majority of money right now. Is women are naturally compassionate. Women are naturally more nurturing. Women are naturally a little bit more loving, not on the inside, but at least on the surface. Women are also way better at noticing and paying attention to detail. Like, for example, I can open up the cabinet and be like, Lori, where's the such and such? And it'll be right in front of my face, and I literally can't see it. That's not it's a real thing. I cannot see the macaroni in front of my face, right? And she'll come in, she'll say it's right here.
If I'm not laughing, it's not a criticism, it's an observation.
Yeah.
Get it.
Hey, listen, I'm owning it.
I love my husband, but anyway, continue. I digress.
Imagine if the most loving, the most compassionate, the most detail-oriented individuals in the world were the ones that got to dictate where the wealth should go. It should go to this cause, it should go to that cause, it should be here, it should be there. The world would become a better place quickly. Because men, what are we programmed like? We're programmed to, puff our chest out a little bit and to leave the cave and kill something and drag it back and say, look how big of a whatever I was able to drag back. And we don't even notice very much on our way out of the cave or our way back into the cave. So we forget to notice the people on the side of the road that need help. We forget to notice some of the trends going on in the world. We forget to notice these things that need our attention after we create the wealth. So that's why I feel like if we could do a little bit better job of redistributing some of this wealth so that it's at least 50-50, if not in the majority control of women, we will provide a lot of solutions quickly.
Oh, I love this. That is so empowering. I love that perspective. But I could go down this path, but I'm going to take you back to Lori.
Okay.
We got off on a side tangent.
We're going to go all over. I hope they're okay with that.
I know. Here, I'm a linear thinker. Stop it. You're messing me up here. Go back to when you and Lori met. You lost everything. You got to clean the slate, and you went into business essentially together.
Yeah.
Tell me what that was like being husband and wife.
Okay.
Because so many couples are afraid of that. That can be a marriage destroyer.
Well, it is. It's not a marriage destroyer, but it's a challenge,
Yes.
right? So marriage, I don't like the phrase that marriage is tough or marriage takes work. I'd say yes. If you get the right person, it should be pretty damn awesome most of the time. But marriage does take a lot of good conscious choices.
Yes.
Right? And those good conscious choices become even more complicated when you're arguing all day about budget or launches or hiring or, God forbid, firing or any of these things that you have to talk about when you're business partners. And the other danger that sets in is not only will you carry over, stress or anger from talking about those things during the day that are not very sexy things, you also run the risk of not leading separate lives anymore, right? So if the two of you are grinding away in your family room on the same project all day, all night, there's no separation in your work day, there's no separate outside lives, like I don't have any stories to come home and tell you, you don't have any stories to come home and tell me. All of that is adding stress to the unnecessary stress to a marriage. Now don't worry, there's a silver lining. This is not like, oh my God, don't go into business with your significant other, because Lori and I own a lot of businesses together. It's make sure that you are as conscious about your relationship as you are about your success. And make both of them an equal priority, because here's what happens. First you meet and you fall in lust and you fall in love. And you make this relationship so shiny and you put it up on the shelf, you say, oh, look how good it looks. And then you turn your attention, you say, great, now let's go make some money. And both of you dive in and you're paying attention to your businesses or your careers or whatever, and you think that this relationship is still sitting on the shelf shiny. The problem is it's collecting dust, right? And you're looking this way, the relationship is over here, and by the time you look back at it, you say, oh shoot, I should have paid more attention to that. And it happens like that. So, number one, make sure that you are as concerned about the wealth of your relationship as you are about the wealth you're creating. They have to be, equal partners in this mission. Number two, make sure that you have little hacks in place, little traditions in place that will separate you from being business partners and romantic partners. So I'll give you an example. Lori and I have a non-negotiable. I mean, it could be raining out. We could hate each other in a moment, love each other in a moment, doesn't matter. We have a non-negotiable 3-mile dog walk every single day. It takes us about an hour. Now here's why. It creates, and by the way, I encourage your listeners to find themselves in my story. If you don't have a dog or if you have kids or something, don't say, well, I don't have a dog. Find yourself and find your version of my story. So here's why. That non-negotiable 1-hour dog walk creates a physical separation from where we just battled it out during the day. It also creates a change of state in our bodies. It creates a change of atmosphere. It creates a change of energy. There's nothing better than going and moving your body and removing yourself from where you just, battled it out all day long throughout the course of that hour. Now, sometimes Lori and I will go on this walk and we'll be silent for the first 45 minutes of it. And she'll say something like this. She'll say, so you're going to go this whole thing without talking to me? Like, I'm not kidding. I'd love to paint a rosy picture, but that's really how it goes. And that's my cue to start talking about it.
Okay.
Right?
But are you allowed to talk about business on your walk? Or
we
is
don't
that
have any rules like that because I feel like that's not realistic. One of the neat things about being a partnership in business, a romantic partnership, is it's a bonus to be able to dream together. And part of that dreaming does involve business. So whereas everybody else will give you the advice of, we don't talk business after 7, or we don't talk business here, or we don't talk business, we don't have rules like that. Instead, we make sure that if we're going to talk business, it's dreaming, or it's concentrating on something positive. It's not going back to that negative conversation we had about marketing or hiring or firing or budgets or any of that stuff earlier.
Okay, so pause. So, because some listeners, if they don't know what you do or what you and Lori are up there with, they're saying, Carrie, what do Chris and Lori do?
Yes.
What's their companies? Tell me about it.
Okay, so Lori has a brand herself that started in the fitness world and really turned into the self-development world. So she's an author and a podcaster and has e-courses and membership courses and, you know, her Bliss Project event, you name it. Any way that we could serve her audience, we've built it. I've got my brand, which is Money Mindset, the podcast, the mastermind, the business coaching. I invest in startups. So I've got my set of things going on as well. So we have all these different verticals that Lori and I own 50-50. We always have a 50-50 partnership in everything.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what we do.
That's what you do. So why do you two work?
Good question. Because we want to.
It's an active choice.
It's a choice. And it's a choice every single day. It's not always pretty. It's not always rosy. We're not always in love every day, every moment. We've been married for 13 years, together for 16. In that time, you fall in and out of different levels of love. But every day, it's a choice to do the rituals, to do the habits that will give you the best shot at remaining in love.
What do you love about your wife?
Her ambition. She's funny. She's down to earth. Everybody else sees the fitness model with all the abs.
Yeah.
She's
Well, how
just
can you
like
not? It's
this
a little
goofy. I always describe her as my best guy friend trapped in a super hot chick's body. Like, how cool is that combo, right?
Analogy.
So
that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, we can sit around the house,
Yeah.
and we're both introverts by nature. And people confuse introverts. It doesn't mean we don't like being around people. It means we recharge by being quiet and alone. So we can sit around the house on the same couch for a couple of hours and not say a word, and that's perfectly acceptable. Or we can be like going down the rabbit hole, adding layers to a dream, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and that's equally exciting to us. So we just work. But we work because we choose to make it work.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, you get to brag for a while about your wife and about your life for a bit. Like, I want to know the details. Last night, you're at the Dancing for the Stars. A few weeks ago, Lori's hanging out with Oprah on a cruise. But you didn't go.
No.
Okay, tell me, like, what is going on?
So when you have so many things going on, you end up with more and more and more shiny distractions, let's call them. So
Chris, it's Oprah.
just because something is shiny doesn't mean it's a good choice, right?
Okay, I'm listening. I'm waiting for it.
So, number one, I hate cruises.
I do too.
I mean, I really despise cruises.
Okay.
Number two, I have so much going on right now. I'm refilling my elite mastermind. Nobody knows this, but I'm about to launch, so I've been building an entry-level mastermind. There's a couple of companies that I sit on their board and have equity in. I had meetings for that. And we had just gotten off of Lori's first book tour, and then doing 2 months on vacation, which we've never done before. There's another thing we can talk about later.
The name of her book, so everybody
A
knows.
tribe called Bliss. It's all about the new rules of female connection. It's amazing.
New York Times bestseller.
It's
okay.
amazing. So,
Go back.
Lori got an invitation to be the primary facilitator teaching the Oprah cruise that Oprah does a couple times per year. And on the surface, this would be shiny. Ooh, I want to go. I want to see what this is all about. But when I talked earlier about making things work, choosing to make things work, I knew the right choice was to stay home and work on the responsibilities that I had to work on. So the combination of hating cruising and knowing I had so much work to do made it the right decision. And we deliberated about this for a while. Matter of fact, to lift the curtain, my biggest fear was I was going to hurt Lori's feelings or make her feel like I wasn't supporting her. And when I told her, babe, we were actually in London when she got the invitation. I remember we're on the bed in the hotel, and right away I'm like, babe, I don't think I want to go. And we talked about it for days on should I go, should I not? And I asked her honestly, I said, am I hurting your feelings or am I not supporting you by not going? And at first, her gut reaction was, well, of course, I want you to come along, not to mention I don't want to be on this cruise ship by myself.
Yeah.
But as we talked about it more, she realized, yeah, you really do have a lot going on, and I would probably be better served, I being Lori, by having her assistant go with
Right.
Evans, who they're like two peas in a pod anyways, on this cruise instead of me.
Okay. So you didn't go.
No.
Was it productive while she was gone?
Yeah, so productive.
Did she have the time of her life?
So she loved facilitating, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she loved the facilitation part.
Yes.
She loved the Oprah crowd.
Yes.
She loved all of that because she's in her zone of genius when she's doing that. She's also not a fan of cruising.
Okay.
So the rocking of the boat and all the stops at all the ports and all that stuff, let's just say she endured that.
That's fair. Thanks for being honest about
Yeah.
that. You mentioned something a little bit earlier that made me go, did you say like you haven't had a vacation?
Okay, so when we're talking about making it work between couples that are in business together, it's easy to put your head down, get into momentum, have so many shiny things happening for you that you forget to take a vacation, you forget to do a little bit of self-care. Now, we had gone, I don't know, I never took a real hard look at it, but let's just say we had gone a couple of years at least of just rolling up our sleeves, going full speed ahead, and not taking anything more than a long weekend. We'd go speak somewhere and we'd put a day or two on each side of it. That was the best of a vacation that we did. We did go to Greece the year before, but that was only like 8 days. And by the time we go over there and come back, with how busy we are, that's not like, I don't call that a vacation.
Yeah.
And we were burnt out. We really were. This was at the very tail end of her writing her book, releasing her book, doing the first book tour, you name it, a lot of new things in our life. And so we knew we needed not just a typical 1 week break or a long weekend, we needed a break. So we did a month in Europe and then a month around the US seeing our friends and family. And that 2 months off was, we learned so much about ourselves. I remember on about the 6th or 7th day, we were having our coffee in the morning, we were in Greece, and I looked at Lori and I said, babe, I'm really scared I can't do this. Because here we had at least 3 weeks left of being in Europe.
Yes.
And she's like, oh my God, I was just thinking the same thing. And I didn't know how to vacation. I was scared. I was like, what's going to happen to the businesses? Am I going to like being gone this long? How am I going to fall into a routine of doing nothing other than drinking and sleeping and hanging out and having fun? And I was really, on day 6 or 7, I really meant it when I looked at her and I said, babe, I don't know if I can do this. And people are going to laugh at this that don't understand. But I said to myself, and I said to Lori, I said, okay, 1 day at a time. That's all we have to do. 1 day. Now, most people think 1 day at a time if you're doing something torturous. This is on vacation. I'm saying, okay, babe, we just have to take it 1 day at a time. But I offer that up as an example of just how far down the rabbit hole we were, that we didn't know how to turn it off. We didn't know how to relax or take some time for ourselves, or what our value would be if we weren't reaching people and doing anything. So this whole take it 1 day at a time thing worked for the first few days until I really did get into a groove and get into routine. And by the end of the 2 months, had I not been so recharged and had so many exciting projects that I got to go back to, I'm telling you, I really got into it and I could have just kept on going.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So bottom line, what did you learn from the experience?
That we have to do this every year. We can't wait that long. It doesn't have to be 2 months, but we probably will take a month off in the summer every single year.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Great experience.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about your philanthropic work because part of your mantra, isn't it, or your belief system is the more you give, the more you get.
Yeah,
So
when good
that.
people make good money,
Thank
they
you.
do great things.
Okay, that was the quote I was looking for.
And you know what? I want people to really hear that because
Yes.
this is your permission to be successful. When good people make good money, they do great things. Like, think about this. Here's why I'm so passionate about everybody playing all out and making as much as they can and being the best versions of themselves. Because if everybody did that, I firmly believe there'd be enough products in the world, enough solutions in the world, enough breakthroughs in the world, and enough money to fund all of that.
That's
so
big.
that we could cure every single thing that ails us.
Okay.
Think about that. If everybody played all out, except the problem is most people are not playing all out. I'm not playing all out. Like, I'll be honest, I'll put it on the table. Some people might look and say, wow, you're doing a great job. I'm probably playing at about 50%. And so if everybody would play at 100%, I know that we could solve everything. So I'm just trying to get people as close to playing all out and help them break free of these BS stories that we have about not being successful or why we're not worthy or why we can't do it as much as possible.
Can you give us a concrete example of what you mean by that? Like playing all out and living all out and like just drive it home for us.
Yeah. Okay, so let's use myself when I said maybe I'm at 50%.
Yeah.
I know that I could be even better about my self-care routines. I've got them set for every day, except doesn't mean I do them to the best ability or as consistently as I want to. I know for a fact there are other business connections that I could reach out to that would say, yeah, let's get together, let's do it. Yet I haven't reached out to them yet because I don't want to, quote, bother them, or I feel like the timing's not right. I'm really good at selling myself on things, right? So those are very small examples of not playing all out, not pushing it as far or as fast as you know that you can in the moment.
Okay, so but then aren't you just working around the clock if you're just constantly pushing? Where's the balance in
I don't
that?
believe that working more is the answer.
Okay.
And coming from somebody who works an awful lot, I don't believe that working more is the answer. I believe that continuing to learn how to become more effective and more efficient, I believe that's the answer.
Okay. You've done a lot of self-development along the way, and I've got to ask you about your 30 books in 30
Yeah.
days. How the heck did you read a book a day with the schedule that you keep?
So this was about 3.5 years ago. And the reason I read 30 books in 30 days is Lori was on a rocket ship. And I was just kind of hanging out in what I call Goodsville. You ever hear the phrase, good is the enemy of great?
What is it?
Good is the enemy of great?
No.
Okay, so here's what that means. When things are good, you don't have the pain points that push you to do the uncomfortable things to get to great.
Okay.
So Lori was doing all the right things. She was reading the books, listening to the podcast, going to the events, making the friendships, finding the partnerships, playing all out. So she's on a rocket ship.
Okay.
Things were good in our life. Our relationship was good. Our bodies were good. Our health was good. Our wealth was good. So I didn't have the pain points to want to get to great, to push me to great. Now, here's the problem. I knew that if Lori stayed on this trajectory and I stayed down here, we were going to wake up one day and the gap would be far too great for us to continue to have a good marriage or a good relationship. So it started to stew in me a little bit that I needed to do something about it. And actually, the time that I knew for a fact that this is a problem and I really need to find a solution was we were at dinner one time and I'm sitting across from my beautiful wife. And she is telling me about this exciting new opportunity with these exciting new people and this exciting this and exciting that. And I remember sitting across from her thinking, why does everything always have to be so damn exciting? Like, why can't it just be good enough like it is right now? And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, wait a minute, why are you being resentful of somebody who is playing all out and is excited about life and about opportunity? Like, that's not her problem, that's my problem.
Yeah.
And so it really hit me that I needed to do something. I started watching, how could I level up? How could I level up? And I saw this person on Instagram, and it's this cheesy video that he's like, here I am in my garage, and here's my Ferrari, here's my Lamborghini, but what is really important in here are these books. And he pans up all these books, like the ones behind us. And his garage is lined in books. He goes on to talk about, as a successful entrepreneur, he reads a book a day, every single day, his entire adult life. And it hit me. I was like, if this dude can be successful and still read a book a day, and if that is partly responsible for his success, then maybe I could read a book a day for 30 days. And I remember for a couple of days, it started to grow in me, and I went to Lori and I said, babe, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I need to read 30 books in 30 days because, you're on a rocket ship, and I'm just kind of down here coasting, and I know it's going to create a problem for us. And she never acknowledged it. She never said, I told you so. None of that. She just said, that's awesome. How can I help? So that's why I read 30 books in 30 days. And I cleared my schedule for the next month. I picked out about 10 books, knowing the rest of them would show up. Yeah. My 2 criteria was this. It had to be less than 300 pages and it had to grow me in some way. And what I found in those books as a common thread was one of the things that really confirmed my love for philanthropy and giving.
Okay. I got to ask, though, how much did you absorb reading that much material in 30 days? It's hard to retain that amount.
It is. So it's not that I absorb everything in all those books. It's that I learned so many new habits while taking away the main points of the books. And I read them cover to cover, every page. And matter of fact, it was way more physically challenging than I expected. Clearing the time was actually the easiest part of it. Clearing the time was, I realized how much time I was wasting. I was embarrassed about how much time I was wasting, I discovered. The physical part, like, I remember the third day, I was like, why are my shoulders sore? Oh no, I'm getting a flu. And my eyes were burning. And I realized it was from being hunched over like this for 8 hours the day before. So what I learned from the books was the habit of how much time I'm wasting. The common thread of the secret to everything you want is giving, no matter what the book's agenda was. That common thread ran through them all. It was just how much I loved reading, because before this, I had not read a book cover to cover in my adult life.
Really?
Can you believe that? Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's an interesting concept, I'm not going to lie, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not everybody's thing,
No.
but it's important.
No, I hope what anybody takes out of that picture is, number one, realize if a change needs to be made. Realize that sometimes that change needs to be significant in order to really give you that boost up to the rocket ship. And number 3, own it. Like, listen, I've been flat plenty of times in life, but I've owned it and made the choice of what can I do to get back into momentum.
Let's talk a bit more about owning it and about change and growing your business. What do you see as some of it? Let's just pick three. I don't like to talk in a negative voice, but let's talk in the positive voice. 3 things that people have to do a better job at growing their business. What are game changers in that regard? And I need to know if they're different between men and women.
Really good question. Okay, I won't differentiate between the sexes first. I'll just, whatever comes up for me. So number 1, your tribe. Like, your tribe will make or break your business success. I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to start a side hustle, and you're really passionate about it. And your old friends say, you used to be more fun when you came to happy hour with us. Or, oh, there you go, off on your little mission again. Mm-hmm. That tribe is holding you back, and they don't even realize it. They're just protecting what they thought was a friendship.
Right.
But your tribe is holding you back in that example. So that's number 1. Number 2, your mentors. You have to seek help. I mean, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, all the best athletes in the world, they have coaches. You need a coach too. And number 3, I think that you need to absolutely be louder about your business, be louder about what you're trying to do in the world, be louder about why your product is unique to all the other people's product, and that's through marketing. There's too many people that are just doing these silent sales and this kind of half-assed version of marketing and all sort of stuff. Be loud, be proud, be obnoxious, and make sure everybody knows what you have to offer.
I wonder though, and I want your perspective on this, whether men are better at being louder than women. Here's the example. Now I'm trying to grow my own business, but I get nervous when I would have to ask the likes of you, hey Chris, will you promote my podcast with you on your social media platforms? Yeah. I'm like, I don't know if that's a realistic ask. I don't want to ask. I don't know. And I get all nervous, and then I end up not doing it. And I think a lot of women have those reservations.
You know what? Men have those reservations too.
Do they?
I'm telling you, if men aren't talking about it, or that's the only reason you don't know that they have those reservations. Men have just as many insecurities about that kind of thing as women do as well.
So we're equal in that playing field.
We are.
What more do women need to do, or what mistakes? Now I'm going to go back to the negative voice. What 3 mistakes do we make in growing our business?
I think that, and you're asking about women only, right?
Yes, I'd like to know. But if you think it's the same again, I don't want to keep differentiating, but...
Yeah. I would say, if anything, is that women need to understand that they are entitled to having whatever they want. They don't have to be a mother that stays home. They don't have to not have a nanny or be shamed for having a nanny. They just need to stop. I'll give you one thing. Forget the 3. They need to stop caring what other people think, right? If they are worried about what other people think because they hired a nanny, or they're not home enough, or they're working on their business too much, or whatever, all of those things are holding them back. They only need to care about what their family thinks, what their loved ones think, and most importantly, what is making them happy and fulfilled inside. Because there's way too many women out there that are sacrificing their dreams and their abilities for what other people think is the right way to lead their life.
We have a tendency to worry about what everyone thinks about us. I think it's human nature as well. Because family oftentimes is the center of our universe. Yeah. I need to ask you whether or not family is in the cards, extended family for you and Lori.
The kids?
Yes.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah,
I love hearing it.
I cannot wait to be a parent. It's going to be the coolest thing ever.
Tell me more.
So we've been married 13 years. For that first 8 years, we did not think that we wanted to be parents. Like, we were unanimous. And we've been fortunate that we've always been unanimous on this. And then, when we started to change our tribe, we started to see other versions of parenting that became very appealing, right?
What are those versions?
We have friends whose babies have been traveling the world since they were just a few months old. We have friends with 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds that have already been in 20 or 30 countries. They built the kids' lives around theirs. They didn't build their lives around their kids. And we have families that they live a third of the year in Costa Rica, a third of the year in France, a third of the year in Toronto, like, you name it. We've seen so many sexy versions, especially living in LA here. You see the great ways to be a parent, and that really started to crack us open and made us say, wait a minute, it doesn't have to look the way that we saw back when we lived in the Midwest necessarily.
I love the way you frame that as sexy versions.
Yeah, for sure. Right down to
is.
Sexy parents. Like, I see, the moms and dads running around LA here, and they're in perfect shape, and they look great, and their style's on point, and their kids look adorable. Like, you can do it in the way that you want to do it.
let's go back to your philanthropic work, because
Yes.
it's very important to
It
me
is.
as well. I've spent many, many years giving away time and helping out organizations, children's hospitals, mental health foundations and whatnot, and I really, truly believe in it. I want your pitch on it, on how people should approach it and why they need to give back and why it is so important for someone who's not involved and says, oh, come
Yeah.
on, Chris, really? Give them their pitch.
I've got,
Give them the sales pitch.
For sure. Here's why. At first, it is okay to be motivated by whatever carrot motivates you. So what I mean is, in the beginning, there's very few people who say, wait a minute, I want to become a multimillionaire so I can go change everyone's lives. That's just not realistic. At first, it's like, I want a nicer house for my family, or I want nicer cars, or I want Louboutins, or whatever it might be, right? That is okay if that is what first gets you out of bed, gets you to build the machine that starts printing the cash, because once you get those things, you realize they're nice, but they're just not as fulfilling or exciting as what you think they're going to be. But now, check it out. You've built a machine that's printing the cash, you're seeking more fulfillment, and that is where you realize more fulfillment comes in the form of helping other human beings. And when you turn your attention towards how big of a way can I help, then that drives you to get to the next level. Here's a real example. We're at the Pencils of Promise Gala, not this year, I mean, we were there this year, but this happened 2 years ago in New York. And
it's for?
It's for clean water and education for third world countries. Specifically Guatemala is where we were. So we're at the gala, and there's a gentleman named Tim Sykes, and he stands up right before the auction, where they do the live auction. He says, wait, totally spur of the moment. He says, as you guys know, I gave $1 million about 30 days ago, but I want you guys to really push the pedal to the metal during this auction. So every dollar that's raised, I will match that dollar over the next 1 hour auction. So that caused everybody to up their ante, so to speak.
Sure.
And he was even trying to outbid everyone just to drive it up. And he ended up giving her $700,000 in that next hour, right? So here's a man who gets 1.7 spur of the moment in the last 30 days. I was sitting there with a good friend of mine, and I looked at him, and we both wrote 5-figure checks that night on top of all the other money that we had given throughout the year. But I looked at him and I said, wait a minute, that's the level that I want to be able to give. And that intrinsically has been driving me for the last year and a half to not be held back on how big I can give.
You know what I love is how frank you talk about money, and that you say, I want to be able to give a 6-figure this or a 7-figure whatever, and you don't make any apologies for it. And where I think the fine line is, some people say, well, is he bragging? Is that bragging or not? So can you frame that for us and leave it with that thought in our mind? Because it's hard to say that. People look at it, oh, wow, listen to this guy, and he's talking about his Ferrari, and he's got this and that. But you do not see it that way.
This is such an important question. Okay, I'm so glad you asked this. Listen, if we're giving in the dark, then we cannot inspire anybody else to give as well. If we're giving in the dark, we cannot spur those ideas in somebody else who sees us, even as simple as buying a coffee at Starbucks for the person behind you. Somebody else sees that. What happens? They buy it for the one behind them. Imagine that being done on a larger scale. People forget that you go about their busy lives. They forget to give as big as they could to other people. And so when I talk about that unapologetically, I'm just reminding and inspiring other people to say, wait a minute, I'm a giver too. I'm going to go step up my game. That's what's behind it.
And that's powerful. The way you frame it that way, it changes the way I think about it now too. What's next for Chris and Lori Harder?
So 2019 is going to bring a lot of change. And Lori is really wanting to step back. Boy, talk about things that people don't know. She's really wanting to step back from this influencer role. Definitely doesn't want to be in the fitness world anymore. Definitely doesn't want to be, out there doing e-courses and all that stuff anymore. She wants to build a company that I can't quite tell you about yet, that is going to be taking all of her time and energy. And we're talking big capital raise and everything. So that's the direction that she wants to go. I'm going to support that while also doing my 2 masterminds and continuing to invest in other startups and sitting on their boards. And hopefully maybe we'll have a kid this year, who knows?
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's so funny. If you ask her, she'll say, okay, maybe we'll start in December and January, and then sometimes it's wait, maybe we'll wait a year. So I'm just over here whatever.
Okay, that's exciting. A lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
Final question. How do you define happiness? What makes
choice.
You? Oh.
Choice. Choice is happiness. Being able to show up however you want, being able to talk about whatever you want, being able to do whatever you want every single day and who you want to do it with and wherever you want to do it. Like to be able to live in the most beautiful, city of Santa Monica by the ocean with the friends that I want to have and be able to do, build my routine the way I want to do it. That's happiness. Choice is happiness. And the choice to be able to contribute and the choice to be able to create impact for other people, that adds to it.
That's huge. Thank you for leaving us with that thought. Where can people find you?
Go find me at Chris W. Harder on Instagram. It's the only platform I'm hanging out on these days, and I promise I respond to 100% of my DMs, so send me your questions. And my podcast is fortheloveofmoney.com.
I could sit here and talk to you all day. I have learned so much in this 45 minutes, like incredible takeaways. Thank you for sharing your gifts with us today, your knowledge with us today. And thank you, and you did this, for bringing money into the inner circle with Carrie Doll.
Totally.
My gratitude to you.
This was so much fun. It flew by.
Thank you.